Is Riot getting shite at balancing League of Legends? Patch 7.15 just went live and it's a fairly tame patch, especially compared to the one that just went before it. By itself though, that doesn't really say too much. 7.14 was an absolute mess. But still, most significantly about this latest patch is that this marks the third patch in a row where there has been a hotfix nerf shortly after its release. Is this a worrying trend for League of Legends? Does this reflect poorly on the competence of the balance team over at Riot? Before I answer that question directly, I think we should take a little step back and look at Season 7 and its balancing as a whole. The beginning of the season was a little bit rocky. If you can remember, there were 3 prime bans that you had to do in every single game: Rengar, LeBlanc, and Camille. If any one of those 3 fell through the ban phase, they were immediately picked up as the first pick. However, once Riot had those 3 under control, League of Legends was actually fairly balanced for a pretty long period of time. When the tank update hit live, things were a little bit shaky again. Zac and Sejuani specifically were extremely powerful, but again, once those were neutered and the dust settled, things looked pretty fine once more. And then patch 7.14 hits and everything goes tits up. So honestly, in general, in Season 7, the balance department has done a fairly good job. You can definitely make an argument for them doing things right. I mean, if we take a look at the champion releases we've seen so far in Season 7, out of Camille, Xayah, Rakan, and Kayn, only one of those has been released in a really broken state. So champion release wise, it's a bit like that thought that creeps into your head when you're getting the blowy of your life that wonders where your girl learned to do that. You know, it's not great, but not too bad really. Reworks, on the other hand, are a little bit of a different story. Rengar and LeBlanc were both some of the most overpowered champions we've seen all season, alongside Shaco, Katarina, and Kha'Zix, who've also been frequent targets of the nerf hammer. Having said that, those changes mostly fall under the pre-season umbrella, so it's not really fair to judge them with too much scorn. You do have to be lenient with those things. It's like judging Fire for being the worst brother in the family. I mean, his competition is only me, so you know, it's not really fair. Plus, the preseason's whole purpose is pretty much just to be experimental, right? Fine-tuning things for the good stuff coming later. As the older brother, you could probably say the same about Fire there too, actually. So far, objectively speaking, it's a bit of a muddy picture as far as Riot and their balancing has been. I think it's fair to say that the majority of the monstrosities committed in Season 7 were done so in the preseason, so it's a bit more forgivable. And I also feel like it's fair to say that Season 7 has seen a decent amount of time in a balanced state. However, like I mentioned before and something I want to talk about now, what really stands out to me is the amount of hotfixes we've seen this year. We're only about like 2/3 of the way through the season so far, and we've already seen more hotfixes this year than the previous 2 seasons combined. What's interesting about hotfixes though is that by themselves they're like a lazy artist. They don't paint a full picture. You could make the argument that hotfixes imply a lack of foresight, essentially that Riot's releasing too much stuff that's either too strong or too weak, and through that you could then say Riot's like lazy or they just, you know, suck at balancing. On the other hand, more hotfixes could actually mean that Riot is more active with responding to imbalances and therefore good at balancing. After all, when releasing new champions or reworking existing ones, it's incredibly hard to know with certainty what would be too strong or too weak. Since Season 5, out of all champion releases and reworks, 48% of them have been either nerfed or buffed within the following patch. It's essentially a coin flip with new stuff whether or not it'll be balanced. So whether or not you think Riot should be commended or condemned for hotfixes, it's pretty much down to your own outlook on the situation. My personal opinion on it though is that hotfixes alone are not inherently bad. The hotfix buff to Aatrox after his rework, for example, has left him in a pretty good spot statistically speaking. Singed, whose last love from Riot was over 2 years ago, was hotfix and nerfed within moments of his mini rework. And despite being a move that angered Singed mains, pretty understandably so, you know, imagine scoring a movie date with your crush of several years, only for her to ask you to drop her off at a boyfriend's house when the film's over, just as a random example. You know, Singed, he's doing pretty well from numbers perspective as well. Basically, it seems like his nerf was justified. But my issue with hotfixes is when they seem either too reactionary or just like ham-fisted, not delicate enough, like peeling a rose petal, nursing a wound, or talking to your girlfriend about her putting on some weight. You gotta be soft. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. hotfixes, not the girlfriend thing. In Season 5, around the time when the Juggernauts were reworked, don't even get me started on that, by the way, Fiora was also reworked. After that release, she was deemed too weak and received a hotfix buff. A little while after, she was deemed too strong and was nerfed, and then nerfed again in the next patch. Like, for me, that's just terrible hotfixing, and that's just bad balancing. And sadly, we've kind of seen a bit of this with Zac this year as well after his rework. He actually received a hotfix buff after that rework, and then he got a proper buff in the following patch, and was shortly after hotfix nerfed. Like, that's just pretty wank balancing in my opinion. Still, outside of the hotfixes, has Season 7 proved Riot's incompetence at balancing the game? To me, no. Now don't get me wrong, patch 7.14 was the worst patch we've seen all year by far. Recency bias would say that they suck, but overall this year I think they've not been too bad. But still, that's my opinion. What's your opinion? Do you think they suck at balancing? Do you think they've done a pretty good job? Let me know what you think down below in the comments, guys. But that's all from me. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. You can subscribe to me for more League of Legends content, and you can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, and catch me streaming at twitch.tv/Foxdrop. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.